Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us.
Right.
Today we're going to be looking at something, well, we're always looking at something, but today we're going to be looking at color. But not just like, oh, that's a pretty color. We're going deep into the world of color in Japanese art.
Okay, yeah.
And get this, we're diving in using a review of a book called Colors in Japanese Art by Nobuyoshi Hamada.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the reviewer, it's not just some random person. This person, she's an architectural color consultant, A&D, an artist, and she got really fascinated with how the Japanese use color so intentionally, like when she traveled there.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So her background really brings something special to how she looks at this book. You know, an architectural color expert, they don't just like pick out paint colors, right?
Right.
They're thinking about how color affects the whole feel of a space, like how it draws your eye, how it can even change your mood, even how you behave.
Whoa, I never thought about color that way. It's like they speak the language of color.
Right. Speaking of language, this reviewer, she was immediately drawn to the glossary of the book, like before she even started reading the actual content.
Yeah, a glossary, people don't always pay attention to it,
Right.
but it's like a map of the important ideas in the book. And for someone like this reviewer who's used to really analyzing color, I bet seeing how this book organized all its color terms, it probably made her even more curious about how that all connects to Japanese art.
That makes sense, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how this book is put together. It looks at color from all these different angles. So there's like the history of the colors,
Right.
what they symbolize in Japanese culture, where they got the pigments from,
Yeah.
and then how they actually combined colors in art pieces, pottery, even clothing.
Wow, a lot to cover.
I know, right?
That's what makes the book so good. It gives you this complete understanding of color in Japanese culture.
Oh,
So you don't just see red and think, oh, that's pretty. You learn about where it comes from, what it means, how it's been used for centuries to tell
Yeah.
stories, convey meaning.
It's like color has a whole secret life, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that blew the reviewer away was how the book gets into the specific ways they used colors in different seasons in Japan. I don't know about you, but certain colors just feel like fall to me or spring. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Imagine that, but like super intense.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think about how important seasons are in Japanese aesthetics. I mean, they celebrate cherry blossoms in the spring, fiery maple leaves in the fall. Each season has its own color palette, and it's not just about looking pretty. It shows their connection to nature, how they see time as this cycle, always changing.
That is so cool. So for those of us who maybe aren't experts in Japanese art, the reviewer said the book has all these helpful examples of color combinations. They're shown right next to actual pictures of artwork, pottery, textiles. She called it a cheat sheet for understanding color palettes.
Having those visuals is so helpful, right?
Yeah.
Because instead of just reading about these ideas, you see them actually come to life in the art. It helps you get how different color combinations create different moods, different visual effects. And these principles, they apply everywhere. Think about how your home is decorated, or even how a website uses color to grab your attention.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so the book, it organizes everything by color families. Like each one gets its own chapter: red, purple, blue, green, yellow, brown, black and white, A&D, gold and silver. That's a lot of colors.
That's a lot of colors.
Yeah.
It's a good way to do it because then you can really go deep into each color. And it's important to remember different cultures, they see color symbolism in their own way.
Yeah.
In a lot of Western cultures, white means purity, weddings. But in Japan, it can also be about mourning, even death.
Wow. Wow. It really shows you how much culture affects how we see color.
Yeah.
Okay, so in addition to those color families, they have these special topics, I guess you'd call them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, things like layered color schemes, plant and bird-inspired color names, even kabuki actor color names.
Yeah. Kabuki actor color names, huh?
What's that all about?
Those special topics, they show how deep and complex Japanese color knowledge is. Layered color schemes, for example, they're all about creating depth, subtlety, often with just one color but in different shades. It's like adding another dimension to the art.
So like a chef using all sorts of spices to make the flavor more interesting. Instead of just one thing, you get this whole explosion
Yeah,
of color.
exactly. And the plant-inspired color names like cherry blossom pink or bamboo green, it shows how connected Japanese aesthetics are to nature. They don't just see a color, they connect it to something in the natural world with all its beauty and symbolism.
That's beautiful. What about kabuki colors? Those must be really bright and dramatic.
Oh yeah, Kabuki theater is known for its expressive use of color. And each color you see in a kabuki actor's makeup or costume, it tells you something about their character. So a hero might have a red face, while a villain could be blue. They choose those colors on purpose. It's like their own visual language.
Okay, so the reviewer really emphasized that color in Japan is never just random. It's always chosen to say something specific, to make you feel a certain way. It's like a secret code waiting to be cracked.
Right, and the book gives us the tools to start cracking that code, like learning a new language, the language of Japanese color.
Yeah.
It makes you think, are we that intentional with color in our own culture?
You're really making me think here. Okay, so before we jump into the next part, what were your first impressions when you heard about this review and the reviewer's take on things? What really stood out to you?
Well, I have to admit, what really got me is how personally the reviewer connects with Japanese color. She wasn't just reading this book, she was relating it to her own travels, her own observations. That personal touch, it makes it feel so real and makes those insights even more interesting. I'm curious to learn more about what she actually saw in Japan, what specific color experiences made her want to read this book in the first place.
I'm right there with you. It makes me think, did she see a painting? Was it a temple that made her so interested? Or was it more just everyday life in Japan? That's something to think about as we head into part 2, where we'll actually dig into the reviewer's own journey of discovering color. Stay with us.
Welcome back, everyone. So, as we were finishing up part 1, I kept thinking about how this color consultant, she had that moment in Japan where everything clicked.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder what she actually saw that made her so fascinated with Japanese color.
Right. Like, was there this one specific spot or moment where she was just like, whoa, the way they use color here is just mind-blowing?
Exactly.
It'd be amazing to, like, retrace her steps and see those colors through her eyes.
Totally. And remember how she was so drawn to the glossary? Maybe there was this one specific color name or term she came across that made her realize there was this whole system of color, meaning she was just starting to understand.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Maybe it was something simple like izome for indigo blue. But learning about its history and what it meant culturally, it opened up this whole new world for her.
Yeah, I bet you're right. Okay, so the book, it's organized by color families, and each chapter dives into the history, symbolism, and how they used a specific color in art. The reviewer mentioned she was really struck by how the Japanese use blue. She said it made her see blue in a completely different way.
That's really interesting because blue doesn't always get a lot of attention when you talk about color symbolism.
Yeah.
People tend to focus on the bolder colors like red or yellow.
Right, right.
But blue in Japanese art, it has this subtle power that can be really captivating. It's often associated with coolness, calmness in nature, like the ocean or the sky.
Which makes total sense when you think about how important those elements are in Japanese culture.
Definitely.
But blue is also connected to spiritual ideas like truth, loyalty, even the divine. I remember seeing these incredible indigo-dyed textiles in a museum once, and the depth of that blue was just mesmerizing.
Indigo is a great example. It's a natural dye with such a long history in Japan. And to create those deep blues, it takes so much work, so much skill, patience. You really have to understand the materials. It's not just a color, it's an art form in itself.
It really is. I'm thinking about Hokusai's Great Wave, all those swirling blues. Do you think reading this book changed how the reviewer saw those kinds of iconic images?
Oh, absolutely. By understanding what blue meant culturally and historically in Japanese art, the reviewer could see beyond just how beautiful it was and appreciate those works on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
For example, knowing that blue was often associated with the divine, well, now you might look at the Great Wave not just as a powerful depiction of nature, but also as this meditation on the vastness and mystery of the universe.
Whoa, that gives me chills. Okay, so blue clearly made a big impact on her.
Yeah.
What about some of the other colors? Did she talk about red or green or any of the other color families?
She did, and she was surprised by all the different meanings associated with red. I mean, in a lot of cultures, red is mostly about passion, danger, even aggression.
Right.
In Japan, it can also symbolize joy, celebration, good luck, and protection. It's often used in Shinto shrines and festivals.
I never realized how much cultural context changes how we see color. It's like we're looking at the world through different colored lenses.
Exactly. And the book really emphasizes that these meanings, they're not fixed. They've changed over time, been influenced by religion, social customs, even fashion trends.
Wow.
So red might be connected to good luck in one situation, but it could mean something totally different in another.
That's fascinating. It makes you wonder if our own understanding of color is as deep and complex as the Japanese approach.
It's a great question to think about. We often take color for granted, but when you start digging into its history and symbolism, you realize how much cultural meaning is hidden in those
You
colors.
know what else really intrigued me? The book talking about special topics like layered color schemes and those beautiful plant and bird-inspired color names. Did the reviewer get into those?
Oh, yeah, she did. And it was those sections that really showed how sophisticated Japanese color aesthetics are. Layered color schemes, for instance, are all about creating a sense of depth and complexity. Instead of just using one color, they'll blend multiple shades and hues, creating these subtle transitions that echo the gradations you see in nature.
Like how a painter uses layers of paint to make the colors glow.
Exactly. And it's not just about how it looks, it also shows this deeper understanding of how colors work together, how they affect each other.
It makes you think about how much thought and intentionality goes into every little detail of Japanese art and design. They don't just pick colors randomly. They consider the history, the symbolism, and the visual impact of every single shade.
And that's where those plant and bird-inspired color names come in. They reflect this profound connection to nature and all the subtle nuances of the Japanese language. So instead of just saying pink, they might use a name like sakura airo, which refers to the specific pink of cherry blossoms.
Wow.
It's a way of linking the color to a particular experience, an emotion.
It's like poetry, but with color. It makes me want to learn all those beautiful color names and where they come from.
Right. It opens up this whole new way of seeing and appreciating the world around us.
Okay, so we've talked about blue and red, layered color schemes, and these poetic color names. But there's one more special topic that I'm really curious about, kabuki actor color names.
Oh, yeah.
That just sounds so cool. Did the reviewer share any insights into that?
She did. And this is where that intentionality with color really shines. In kabuki theater, every color choice, from the actor's makeup to their costumes, it all means something. It's a visual language that helps tell the story and express the character's emotions.
So it's like a code the audience has to crack to fully understand the play.
Exactly. For example, a red face might show you a powerful hero, while a blue face could mean a villain or a ghost. They don't choose these colors randomly. They're based on centuries of tradition and symbolism.
It's amazing how much information they can convey with just color. I'm starting to see why the reviewer was so captivated by the book's exploration of kabuki color. It's like a crash course in visual storytelling.
And it highlights how differently cultures can approach color. In kabuki, color is a crucial part of storytelling, while in a lot of Western theatrical traditions, it's more of a background element. It makes you think, have we lost some of that sensitivity to color symbolism in our own culture?
That's such a great point. It does seem like we often focus more on dialogue and realism over visual symbolism in a lot of Western art and design. But maybe books like this one can help us rediscover the power of color, its ability to tell stories, evoke emotions, and deepen our understanding of different cultures.
I totally agree, and it makes me even more curious to hear about the reviewer's own experiences with color in Japan. Did she mention any specific places or artworks that really stuck with her, or was it more about the overall way they used color in everyday life?
I'm dying to know. Let's dive into those personal experiences in part 3. I think they'll give us some really interesting insights and maybe even inspire us to see the world in a more colorful way. Welcome back to our deep dive. So we've gone through all this history, the symbolism, how they use color in art, but I'm really excited to get to those personal experiences the reviewer talked about. What were those aha moments she had while she was actually in Japan?
Well, what's really interesting is it wasn't just like one big aha moment for her. It was more like this gradual realization. She talks about feeling this sense of harmony and purposefulness in how color was used everywhere she went.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't just in the fancy temples or those incredible gardens. It was even in those little everyday details.
Like what kind of details? I'm curious.
So she describes walking through this traditional neighborhood and noticing the color combinations of the houses, like how a deep indigo roof would go perfectly with the earthy brown walls and then those pops of green from the plants and trees around them. It wasn't showy or overdone. It was just elegant and understated. It really showed this deep understanding of how colors work together.
That's so different from how we use color in a lot of Western cultures. We kind of go for big, bold statements, high contrast, and the Japanese aesthetic seems to be more about subtlety and nuance.
You got it. It's like they're not trying to shout with their color choices. They're whispering, inviting you to really look closely and appreciate the subtlety.
I love that. Did she mention any specific places or experiences that really stood out to her in terms of color?
Yeah, she talked about visiting a Zen garden and being really struck by how the green moss contrasted with those smooth gray stones and the weathered brown of the wooden structures.
I can picture it.
It was like a living color palette, it really embodied those Zen Buddhist ideas. Simplicity, tranquility, that connection to nature.
It makes you think. Color isn't just about what looks good. It's also a powerful way to create a mood, an atmosphere. Like a bright room can make you feel energized, but a room with softer colors can make you feel calm and thoughtful.
You're exactly right. And the Japanese, they've been doing this for centuries. They really get how color can affect us emotionally, even if we don't realize it.
It's like they're speaking to our souls through color. This whole conversation has made me want to go back and look at some of the Japanese art I've seen in museums with a fresh perspective.
Mm.
I wonder if I missed some of those subtle things with the colors.
You should definitely do that. And don't just focus on the colors themselves. Look at how they're put together, how they play off each other, how they contribute to the overall feeling and message of the piece. You might be surprised by what you notice.
I think you're right. This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding and appreciation for color.
It's a journey that never really ends. The more you learn about color, the more you realize how much more there is to discover.
So to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to see the world and all the colors around you in a new way. Remember, color isn't just something we see. It's a language, a story, a reflection of culture and history. And maybe, just maybe, it can even help us connect with each other, helping us see the beauty and all the different ways people experience life. Thanks for joining us on this colorful adventure.